We are live. We are live. Okay. Okay. Hello. I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't know if anyone's joined us yet, but welcome to the Facebook Live with RTYDS and Sheffield Theatres. Today we're going to be here to answer any questions you've got about the Associate Artistic Director Residency. This is Sue Emmers.
Hello.
And this is John Tomlinson.
Oh.
I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then I'm going to be asking them a series of questions that people have sent in advance of the day. And if you've got any questions, please send them to us, and we'll answer as many as we can. Okay, so I'm going to go off screen now, and then I'll be a disembodied voice. Okay. Right, so I guess the first thing that we'd like to know is what exactly
Do you want us to introduce yourselves first?
Oh yeah, introduce yourself.
There's not much to say. I'm just Sue, and with Davinia and Gina, we run the RTYDS, the Regional Theatre Young Directors.
And I'm John Tomlinson, producer at Sheffield Theatres, and Sheffield Theatres is the biggest theatre complex outside of London. We have 3 auditoriums: the Crucible, which is just under 1,000 seats, the Lyceum, just over 1,000 seats, and then the Studio, which is around 400 seats in the left.
Great. Okay, so we'll start with the first question. Could you please tell us what exactly is the RTYDS Associate Artistic Director Residency?
Is that me?
You
We set it up, so I suppose I should explain it. What we have is various levels of opportunity for directors to be embedded in both theatre buildings and companies. And this is the first time we've done an Associate Artistic Director, and the idea very much is that this is a director and artist who is interested in leadership and who's going to be part of the senior management team embedded in the theatre. And part of that, they get to learn about the everyday workings of the organisation, but also look at the operational and strategic aspects of that. And also, really importantly, they get to make a piece of work that's on the mid-scale. So it's an opportunity for someone to make a piece of work that's maybe greater with more resources than they have previously. Is there anything you disagree with that?
I absolutely concur.
just in case we kind of got you involved in the wrong thing.
Okay, great. So now you know what it is. What is the process to apply?
Shall I do that?
Yeah, good.
So the process is open now, and it closes on the 23rd of December. So this is why we're doing this conversation, so you can ask further questions about the detail. So we're looking for an expression of interest of up to 2 pages of A4 to tell us a little bit about you, your work, what interests you, what kind of unites the work that you make, and then a CV. So it's as simple as that. We wanted to keep that really open so that people can access us in that particular way. And then the process following that will be after Christmas. So in January there'll be interviews in London and Sheffield, and then we expect the person to be appointed fairly soon after that, with a start date of September 2020. But that is slightly flexible based on the particular person who we appoint, depending on their life, their project.
Okay, fantastic. In regards to how to apply, we had a question through from one of our from a director that we know, and they said, "I noticed in the form you're interested, amongst other things, in hearing about directors who have experienced barriers because of socio-economic background, and also hearing from LGBTQI plus directors. Is it appropriate to talk about those experiences and that on your application form?"
I would say yes. I think what we're interested in is you as an artist, and that involves you as a person as well, because often, from my experience anyway, the really interesting thing is how artists' life and experience of the world feed into their work. And I guess we want the fully rounded version of who you are, what's important to you, both in your work, in the world, how those two meld together, maybe how they conflict with each other, just to get a sense of you as a maker of work. So as much as we can find out about you is always going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, I would completely echo that. It's really great to see someone coming out of the page on the application form. So if you feel and are happy to do that, then please do.
Okay, great. So in relation to that, so the same director has asked, in relation to the application form, are you interested in hearing about specific ideas that I might have, or how I would use the residency to further my artistic development? For example, specific plays that I might want to direct on the mid-scale, and creatives and actors I would want to work with, and the distinct projects I would be interested in leading on. So how specific do you have to be?
I guess it's always a balance, isn't it, really? Because in some ways what we're imagining is the Sheffield and the whole creative team and the whole work team there are going to get to know you over those 18 months. So to come with too fixed an idea of what you think you're going to be doing there, this isn't a pitch. It's not an opportunity to kind of go, this is what I want to do, this is exactly kind of my idea, and we'll be kind of measuring people on the kind of quality of their idea at this stage. This is just an opportunity through the application form to get to know you, to find out more about you. If there are particular things that you're really interested in, or you've got ideas that chime with you, and at this moment you feel that would be the best way to express you, your aesthetic, your work, then that's always really helpful. But I think at this stage it always feels really onerous on the part of the director to think in any way that you can get inside that organisation without really knowing it at this stage. So we're not expecting you to be kind of pitching, and my understanding anyways, that's not what the application is about. So yes, do say things if there's particular things that you think would work brilliantly on any of Sheffield's stages, or there's something at the minute that really expresses who you are and the work that you want to make, then by all means do that. But don't feel like you have to present some finished thing. This is a chance to get to know you.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. I would say, yeah, don't give us all of that. Just give us a taste or a flavour of that. We're probably more interested in this part of the process to get to know a bit about you and your work, rather than a fully fledged idea, because as Sue mentioned, we as an organisation will build projects together. So it's not necessarily led by one person, it's a shared contribution across the organisation. So we'll be looking for someone who is agile, who's creative in their ideas, but also they need to be flexible as well, depending on the parameters that we have to set.
Okay, fantastic. So another question about the application form. I noticed that demonstrating an interest in artistic leadership is part of the essential criteria. Can I use examples of transferable experience? For example, if I've mentored directors and writers in a company, projects that I've set up, successful ACE bids I've been part of, and if I've managed large groups of people, should they mention that on the application form as transferable skills?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they sound like great things to add to an application form.
Yeah. No, I mean that's really good actually. And to be honest, we always do these things so we can learn things, and actually maybe that's stuff that we should put in both in our 18-month residency and also this, just to encourage people to think about those transferable skills, because leadership is something that you amass over time, and most people invariably will end up leading something having never necessarily done it before. So all of those skills are going to kind of transfer and become a critical mass that definitely demonstrate that you're interested in leadership, and that those are the things that you want to develop more in your practice and also in your kind of working life experience.
Great. All right, I hope that's answered a few of your questions about how to fill out the application form. The next question we've got is, how much time will I be spending in Sheffield, bearing in mind that this is a split role?
So this is an 18-month role, so we expect that around 70% of that time will be spent in Sheffield, working on projects, working with our senior management team across the organisation. So we're not going to prescribe exactly how the weeks would flow, because again, that's dependent on personal circumstances. But we imagine that the relationship with Sheffield and RTYDS would be something like 4 days a week in Sheffield per week, and another day maybe in Manchester in this office, or working on RTYDS projects around the country. But again, when it's tech week, when you're leading a project, we know that that's not going to necessarily work. So again, we want to make sure that we find the right timeline that works for this particular person and the two partners.
And we have to be completely honest, this is the first time that we've done an associate artistic director, and it's also the first time that we've shared a person with a theatre, because normally what we do is very much find a host, a really kind of good partner in terms of Sheffield and other theatres we've worked with, and then that person goes to work with them full time. And what we felt from an RTYDS perspective, and hopefully also for this individual, they would expand their understanding and their experience by spending some time with us. But that's not necessarily sitting in, as you can see, a very small office, but it's kind of what we do a lot of the time, which is working in partnership with other theatres all across the country, from Plymouth kind of through to Newcastle. And so it might be that that person for us is out maybe meeting up with artists across the country, maybe leading workshops or partnerships with other organisations and theatres. So basically it's the first time we're going to have an artist who's actually attached to the company, and that for us is a really exciting development. And so what's going to happen will really depend on that individual, their interests, what's happening in the world, because this isn't going to start till September 2020. So there's a whole range of life that's going to happen politically, socially, artistically between now and then, and we really want to respond to that individual. So it will be kind of a 70-30 split, but it won't be necessarily quite so clear as that. It could be like 6 months completely at Sheffield, and then we get the person maybe for a whole month and we do a really intensive kind of summer project or something. So it's flexible, it's up for discussion, and we really want to tailor it to the individual that gets this opportunity, because we want to learn from them, and they can feed into a very small organisation. RTYDS is only 2.5 people strong, and so to have an extra person, they can really dynamically change what we do and make us think about things in a really different way.
I think you really covered this, but do I have to work in Manchester on the days I'm with RTYDS? So I think you just really covered it.
I mean, you know, obviously we want to make a connection to you, but it might be we come to see you in Sheffield, or you come to our very tiny office space at the Royal Exchange. But I think all of that is up for grabs, and obviously we want to fit that round maybe the caring responsibilities of the individual, or any other kind of needs that they have. So it's really up for kind of a conversation and making it work for the individual.
Okay, so I guess this is a question that we get asked quite a lot for our 18-month residencies is, how much experience are you expected to have, and how do I know as a director that I've got the right level of experience to apply for this placement?
Cool. So I'll let you answer that. No, not really.
I'll have a bash at that one. I think we're really interested in the person, like we talked about already, and not necessarily accolades or awards, but we're expecting that this is someone who's had some professional directing work at different scales. We understand that the challenge is to kind of have that trajectory as a director in your career, hence why we're kind of putting these things together, and also all the great work that RTYDS do. So I think we're quite flexible at this about the particular experiences that people have. So I would say it can be that you have directed 2 professional shows, or it could be 10, somewhere in between, I imagine. But also, like we talked about a moment ago, about those other experiences within in the industry of managing people, managing projects, arts council, all those things to kind of have a fully rounded person who can have a really great 18 months as a senior leader.
And I guess the other thing is, because we have a range of opportunities on offer at RTYDS, it is important to see this within the context of those. So we will be having some 18-month residencies coming up in the new year in 2020, and that is where it's more about a resident assistant director, and again, that person still makes work, but on a kind of smaller scale. So it's really, you know, thinking to yourself honestly, would you be ready to make a piece of work in the Crucible at Sheffield Theatres? Is that something that, in terms of your artistic development, you feel in terms of understanding resources, understanding the challenges artistically of making work in a space of that scale, size, and also prominence? Is that right for you now? And I think the leadership thing is really important, because it's an associate artistic director, and I guess the difference as well with this is it's about strategy. It's about kind of wanting to and being able to contribute and get something from working at that level within an organisation of the scale of Sheffield. So it's a different offer than we've ever done, and it's about learning about the next step to being an artistic director, in terms of programming, in terms of understanding fundraising, in terms of understanding stakeholders. And so in some ways, to really get the most out of that, it does need to come at a level of your development where you feel you've got something to offer, but also it's a bit of a reach at the same time. So it's that, sometimes people say, you know, when's that moment that I move into kind of seeing myself more as an associateship, seeing myself more as someone who is leading on projects, in kind of devising them and kind of working out all of the various facets that go together, from marketing, fundraising, artist development, the whole kind of spread of things. So that's, I guess, it's the complexity of all of those things in terms of what this offer is.
I was just going to add as well, in terms of the scale, I talked about the size of the auditorium, but in terms of the size of the organisation from a people point of view, is that we have around 245 staff. About half of them are full-time or full-time equivalent, and then we work with hundreds of freelance and casual staff across the year as well. So it's a big operation. I would urge anyone who hasn't looked at our website or seen our projects around the country, do come and visit us if you can. I'm sure we can arrange visits, and I'm happy to say hello to people if you do. But yeah, just to sort of see the scale of what we do across the 3 auditorium, and now a 4th in fact, as well, because we just opened a talent development hub. So it's worth having a look at those things if you haven't got a kind of clear idea of what it feels like.
So I think, yes, the next question was, it says on the site, you must have a strong professional track record. So again, it's sort of the thing that we've just covered in the previous question, but what counts as a strong professional track record?
Oh, it's one of those things, isn't it? All of this stuff, because it's so immeasurable, it's not scientific. But I guess it is making work over a sustainable period of time that demonstrates making work on a particular scale. And that's not necessarily, can be number of weeks of run. It can be about the scale and the size and the resources available to you. It's not necessarily, like John said, in terms of accolades or kind of like, you know, Olivier's and all that kind of stuff. It's much more a demonstration that over a period of time, you have begun to hone your craft. You have a sense of the work that you want to make. You've decided, not that anybody ever kind of remains still, is that the sense of your connection with artists in terms of the work that you want to make, the people you want to make it for, who you want to make it with. So it's sort of, I guess it's a critical mass of work that you've made over a period of time. It's, you know, it's immeasurable. It's impossible to quantify, and that's the joy of theatre, but also sometimes the complexity in terms of schemes like this. I think you will know if you're ready for this, and it can be a stretch and it can be a reach, but it's the natural next step for you. You know, this is the thing that is going to unlock for you what you want to do next.
And I would add as well is in terms of if there are other ways that you have measured or you have a feeling about measurement of impact of a particular project, whether that be a collection of 5-star reviews or whether that be the kind of social impact and what you've seen as a response from participants and different groups or audiences as well. That would be important to maybe recognise and put into the application form. We'd love to see that.
Great. I haven't done any community work as a director. Does that matter? Are you expecting someone to have a breadth of kind of having done different types of like work within a theatre?
I don't think, maybe not. I mean, to say that you haven't is absolutely fine. I think what we would be looking for is someone who does understand why it's important, and particularly why it's important to us in Sheffield. We serve our audiences and we serve the place that we live and work, and that's really important to us. It's a kind of core value of why we do what we do. So I think the recognition and understanding of what we do as a kind of creative programme, which is not necessarily just linked to the shows that we make, but it's the whole picture of learning and participation. So I think we would definitely urge people to think about that perspective if they haven't had the experience in it, because that is really important to us in Sheffield.
Great. If the director has access needs, are they going to be met? Can they still apply? Should they still apply?
Short answer is yes.
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 Exactly.
I think what we do is just work to ensure that whatever the access needs, access to prompts, we're there, is that we work with the individual to put in place whatever needs to be put in place.
Yeah, and in Sheffield we're a disability confident employer, so we would urge people who need those special requirements to do so and to tell us what they are, because we're actively looking at how we can support people better as participants, as creatives, and as audiences as well.
And I think so in the application process, Davinia is here at the end of an email/phone to kind of be in contact with people and to really know what we need to put in place, both in the interview process and the application process. So if there's anything that we haven't thought of, please let us know. And apologies if we haven't thought about it, and we really should have, but let us know and we can make the application and interview process as seamless as possible.
Okay. Okay, so if you are at an associate level, you may already be doing some work, you may have existing commitments. Is it possible that you'd be able to do freelance work at the same time as this residency?
I think in an ideal, what we would definitely do, because this starts September 2020, and I hope that we will have the person in place by about March 2020 latest, so that gives us kind of 6-month period for that person maybe to have other projects along the way. what I guess we are hoping in an ideal world is once that person starts, they really embed themselves in this opportunity, because I think the more that they do that, the more they'll get from it, and the more that also both RTYDS and also Sheffield Theatres will get from it. So I think if there are projects that are already in place, of course, I think we just have to respond to that, because it would be foolish not to.
Yeah, I agree. And what I would say is that this is an incredible opportunity, as we've been talking about, but also it will require a lot of attention for someone to get the best out of it. So across that 18 months, to really throw themselves in, and we would expect a lot from them as well. I think it's fair to say, for someone to be part of what is right now a 5-person senior management team, to come into that dynamic as a 6th person, there will be a lot of responsibility on that person's hands, which is not so frightening anyone. It's a really great opportunity, but what I would say is that, yeah, across that 18 months, there will be a lot to learn, but a lot to do as well during that period.
Bearing that in mind then, if a director has a family or caring commitments, would there be opportunity to sort of work around those? How is that going to be approached if someone comes and says, I've got 2 young children?
Yes, great question, and we would absolutely look to work with that individual in the same way we would with access needs. So we're part of PIPA, so we are actively looking at ways that we can support and transfer and change our model of working across particular busy periods to suit individuals and particular parents in the industry. So we would have that conversation at the start of this this process with people to see what works best for them. So whilst I just said that it will be an opportunity that we'll expect a lot from people, but also we recognise that people have lives outside of this industry and this work, and we will do our absolute best to make it suitable for everyone.
Thank you. Do I get money to relocate to Sheffield?
Yes. Yes, you do. Dylan is nodding at me, so that means yes. No, we do, definitely, because we just recognise, again, moving across the country can be really problematic, and it comes with expenses attached to it, so we provide that. Yeah, maybe not as generous as we should, but we definitely do recognise the need for relocation, so there is money attached.
Am I entitled to holidays?
No. Yeah, I assume they'll be on the normal contract at Sheffield, and everything that kind of goes with the benefits.
Yeah,
would come.
Okay. If I'm based in Scotland, Ireland, or Wales, can I apply?
Yes.
That's it. That's good. That was a clear answer. So this one's quite interesting. Who chooses the show that the associate gets to direct during the residency?
That would be a conversation with the senior management team. I think this individual who gets this role will work very closely with Rob Hasty, our artistic director. That will be the key relationship that they'll have at Sheffield Theatres. But within that senior management team, we expect that an idea has to kind of go through each of those senior leaders for it to really float. Also, as part of our programming team, so we have a group of associates, a casting associate, an associate director, and an associate artist, as well as our new work team. So there's a whole plethora of people who you would not even have to go through, but you would kind of share an idea. They would respond to that, and I think that's how an idea can really develop and work, because all of our people in the organisation have different perspectives. So we have to make sure that the parameters are right from a producing point of view. We have to think about budgets and costs and times, partnerships, the whole thing. So for an idea to work, it's a very collaborative process. But ultimately, the starting point, I think, would be for Rob to get excited about it.
Okay, I've gone through most of the questions. I don't know if we have any questions that anybody would like to ask coming through on Facebook. If you've got any, then do let us know now, because we've probably got about another 5 minutes of this. So an interesting question might be, what is it like in Sheffield? And if I'm going to move across the country, what can I expect if I go to live in Sheffield?
It's a thriving place to live and work. I'm completely biased, but I think it's the best theatre in the country, if not the world. Particularly the Crucible Auditorium is this incredible magnet of it does the epic brilliantly, but it does the intimate brilliantly as well. So you're never further than 20 metres from the kind of hotspot of the centre of the stage, which is incredible. There's no bad seat in the Crucible. the Lyceum and then the Crucible and the Studio, the way that they work together as a kind of a microscopic view of the theatre landscape, I think, between the three is really interesting, because we have commercial work coming into the Lyceum week in, week out, so kind of Shrek and Motown, big hitting West End shows, that then supports the work that we do artistically in the Crucible and the Studio. So there's a really interesting kind of circle that goes between, and it is a circle, because if there's any cracks, then it means that the other things can't be delivered. So it all has to work. So we all have to have a view on what goes into the Lyceum, for us to then be able to make the big, bold, ambitious work in the Crucible. As a city, it's an incredibly modest, brilliant kind of place where you can be and see lots of things. There's an incredible kind of arts and culture scene across even just performance venues and theatre companies that are there. Force Entertainment, Third Angel, Utopia. There's some really great theatre makers that are living and working in Sheffield. It's very connected. I think it's very honest and kind of supportive of itself as a city. There's a real kind of power when those people get together, I think, and it's a place that is growing and developing all the time, and it's a lot of fun as well. So yeah, I think if you enjoy cities like Manchester and Leeds, I think Sheffield you will enjoy as much or more.
Great. The other question that just came into my head then, as the associate would be part of that senior management team, would they have a say on the programming of the Lyceum? How does that work? Yeah,
absolutely. We expect this person to come in and be part of all the conversations that we're having at the senior management team. So that's programming, that's our fundraising strategy, that's our new work strategy, that's governance, and that's all the big conversations that we might have to have on a daily, a minute by minute, or a weekly basis as a senior management team. So whilst you might not straight away have a kind of full knowledge or understanding of these particular issues or challenges, we would expect this person to still give their perspective, even if it's a perspective that's still very much learning. So yeah, so be part of a team of 6, it would be from September.
Great. I think we've covered a lot of what they would be expected to do in Sheffield. I suppose another question to Sue I might ask, just for people who've just joined us as well, is what once somebody comes to work with us at RTYDS, what kind of things will we be expecting them to do and be part of?
Well, I guess one of the key things that we do is the craft and career development strand of work, which is trying to give skills, opportunities, experiences to directors all across the country. And what we're trying to do is a few more things like this. So we've got some digital ideas in terms of maybe putting together, we're doing a thing called Top 10 Tips, which we just won with Roy Alexander Vice. We're going to do more in the spring. And it's sort of making, I suppose, digital content that anybody can access across the country, because sometimes as a director at the early stages of development, it's very hard to get hold of information and advice and to upskill yourself. So we're kind of doing that, and we're really hoping that the Associate Artistic Director will help with that, or it might be doing actual workshops physically with directors in the country. We're hoping to do new initiatives which bring people to Manchester from all over the country in partnership with the Exchange and also with the university. So there's lots of new things that we've got on train that this person can help us with. And also what we really hope that they'd be part of the selection process. So what we do, we've got the 18-month residency, we've got the introduction to directing and the 3-month placement. So this person would again really contribute to the choices that we're making with our board in terms of who we partner with, the opportunities that we offer. So hopefully it's a real opportunity for them to feed into our national work across the country, different organisations, different artists. So it's working with organisations, but it's also working with artists, and it's just really expanding everything that we can do and making connections that maybe we haven't managed to have both the person power to do, but also maybe the knowledge or the connections or the skill set to actually access ourselves. So, you know, like I say, this is a new thing for us. So it's a real opportunity for this person to come in and help us decide what that looks like and what they can do. And it will be tailored to their particular skill set, their interests, and where they think they can make the most impact, but also learn the most at the same time as well.
Great. I think we've covered a lot of the questions that we had in advance. We've not had any through, but I hope that everyone who's joined us, I'll come round actually. So I've not had-
Goodbye from
So,
Jane.
hello, hello. I hope that everyone who's joined us, this has been a really useful session. And just to say that if you only joined us later on, this is going to be available to download. We're going to download it, and it'll be available to watch again from the beginning, where we talk a lot more about what is the residency and the application process and what we expect to see in that application as well in more detail. So thanks for joining us, and hope to get your applications. So I'm going to turn it off now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.